What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about Summer Games Fest, or as I like to call it, Bummer Lame's Mess. Got him. Gotcha, Geoff. Gotcha. Yeah, it wasn't a great Summer Games Fest this year. In fact, I would say besides the last two announcements we saw, it might have been the worst Summer Games Fest of all time. I mean, what are you gonna do, right? Geoff kind of blew his wad, so to speak, on the Game Awards. He had so many great announcements at that presentation that it wasn't possible for him to outdo it or even get close to it with this Summer Games Fest event. Combine that with the fact that most companies want to do their own thing during the summer, whether it be Ubisoft or Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft, and combine that with the fact that it feels like 2025 and even early 2026 has kind of been laid out already for a lot of these companies. And other companies like Square Enix seem to be taking a gap year in 2025 and resetting whatever the hell's going on with that company. So it probably wasn't a great time for game reveals, but it's June, and that means Geoff has to come back with Summer Games Fest. And I will say, before all of this, I do respect Geoff, and I do appreciate what he does with Summer Games Fest. Giving us sort of a proper E3 replacement is nice, because I loved E3. For the good and the bad, I thought E3 was a lot of fun. That, 5 or 6 day period when literally everyone would have a presentation. Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Capcom, Square Enix, Ubisoft, all of it. And a lot of the times it was very bad, but at the very least, it was always fun to watch and see everyone's reactions. And hey, every so often you would get a big game reveal and it would be exciting. And that's kind of what happened at Summer Games Fest this time around. And honestly, this has been the most E3 feeling summer ever since it went away in 2021, right? We got Sony on Wednesday, Summer Games Fest on Friday, Microsoft is going tomorrow at the time I'm recording this, and we'll likely get a Nintendo Direct, if not next week, the week after. So more than ever, this does kind of feel like E3 with all these events happening in a short period of time. And that is in part Geoff's doing, right? I'm not saying he forced Sony to do a state of play this week, but I would imagine Sony felt a little bit inclined to do a state of play this week because they knew this was Summer Games Fest. This is the week or so of gaming in the summer. If you want to have a summer presentation, you ought to do it in this time frame. And if not for Geoff trying his best with Summer Games Fest, I don't think that would have happened. Not to say that Geoff is some hero and infallible, right? I don't love that he charges a gazillion dollars to get a spot in Summer Games Fest, and perhaps that's the reason we don't get a lot of good announcements. But overall, I think it is a net positive for the industry, and I do really appreciate how immediately after the presentation, he rolls right into Day of the Devs, which is one of the most important presentations going on in our industry right now. But all of that preamble doesn't ignore the fact that Summer Games Fest kind of sucked this year. There wasn't a lot to talk about. Last year, I did a thing where I talked about 5 games for each presentation of Summer Games Fest, Day of the Devs, and Microsoft. But I couldn't come up with 5 games I was interested in from that Summer Games Fest, I'll be honest. I do have 3, but to make up for it, I'm doing 2 things. I'm going to talk about the State of Play that happened on Wednesday, because that kind of felt like a spiritual Summer Games Fest event, and I think that was arguably the best State of Play we've ever had. And I'm also going to give you 10 games I was interested in this year's Day of the Devs, because I think it was straight up better than last year. And as I've been saying for a while, Day of the Devs is always the best presentation of the summer. There was a lot of cool stuff that we saw at this year's presentation, so I want to highlight some of those games as well. And in the description, you will find a backlog list of every game I talk about in this video, whether it be from the State of Play, Summer Games Fest, or the Day of the Devs. And I'll also include a list made by a different user of every single game shown off at Day of the Devs. So hopefully this helps you discover some of the games we talk about today, or just discover some new games in general, because I know it can be hard with Day of the Devs especially to find the games you're interested in when they show them off, because sometimes they're years away, sometimes they have really weird names and you can't quite search them up easily. So I'm going to have them all in the description, and trust me, there's a lot of cool stuff that got shown off, so you're going to want to peruse that list and see what interests you. With all that said, we've got 18 games to talk about, so let's get right into it. with the 5 games that interested me the most at the State of Play. As I was saying before, I think this was probably the best State of Play ever. I'm a sicko, so I watch every State of Play, even though I don't own a PlayStation. That's for 2 reasons. One, because usually that is the venue where Resident Evil games get announced. Of course, Summer Games Fest got that honor this year, and also there's a lot of third-party games that end up coming over to Microsoft or Nintendo, whether it be in the future or day and date. And with how lackluster Sony's first-party output has been this generation, State of Plays have kind of turned into a third-party showcase. But we're getting to the point where they're pretty darn good third-party showcases, especially this one, where they focused a lot on Japanese developers. And I know a lot of people on Twitter didn't appreciate that, but for someone like me who, I'm a big Nintendo fan, I'm a big Japanese gaming fan, I loved that. But let's talk about the 5 games that interested me the most, starting with Lumines Arise. I never played Tetris Effect, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. I know people who say it's one of their favorite games of all time, and while it seems to be super stylish and super cool with great music in it, I can only get so much enjoyment out of Tetris, I'll be honest. But Lumines is a lot cooler to me in terms of a puzzle game. It's a lot more varied, it's a lot more complex, and sort of Tetris affecting a game like Lumines sounds really interesting to me, and we got that with Lumines Arise. And just from the trailer, this game seems to be taking all of the stylishness and all of the coolness of Tetris Effect and applying it to Lumines. I don't have much to say on this game because it's kind of a what you see is what you get situation. It's Lumines Arise, right? There's not much to it, but I think this could be a really awesome game. We don't have a date for it yet, and it hasn't yet been announced for a system like the Switch 2 or the Series X. I hope it does so I can play it. Regardless, this is going to be a really cool release. Next up is a game that I was starting to not be sure we would ever see, and that is Pragmata, a game revealed, I believe, back in 2020 at that original PS5 showcase. It's a new IP from Capcom, which is always a cool thing to see because, they usually rely on their heavy hitters like Resident Evil and like Monster Hunter. So to see a new IP from them is awesome. And it takes place in space. I think Pragmata has a really cool vibe. These huge space stations in this AI controlled universe or whatever. The intro to the trailer was so weird and abstract, so I can't wait to see where all of that goes. And the gameplay from what we saw looks pretty fun. It seems like more of an action-adventure type game. It gave off a little bit of Resident Evil vibes, but I thought it was a little more fast-paced, a little less dark and scary, I suppose, than a series like Resident Evil. And obviously, it's easy to get something like Last of Us vibes because there's this big machine that's carrying this little girl on its back the whole way through. Even though the girl looks like she's 2 years old and kind of sounds a little bit annoying, she seems to be a pretty fleshed out character with a lot of agency in the game and the story. So I can't wait to see what all of that is about. It wasn't the most detailed trailer, and they said it's coming in 2026. So I'm sure we'll get a few more trailers for this game in the near future. This game is a lock to be at the Game Awards. Just locking that in right now. Geoff and Capcom love each other. We will see a trailer for this in December. So if you're excited for it, wait for that. I certainly am excited for that. Capcom can do no wrong in my eyes, and I can't wait to see what they'll do with a new IP. One of the most acclaimed games of last year was the remake of Silent Hill 2, and guess what? I couldn't play it because I don't have a PlayStation, but I can play Silent Hill F because unlike Silent Hill 2, this game is coming day and date to the Xbox Series X. I did some research on it, and it seems to be sort of a precursor to the eventual Silent Hill 5 in terms of where it fits in the story and the timeline. So that's pretty cool. If we ever end up getting Silent Hill 5, this will probably be an important game to play to understand that fully. I'm not really sure. The explanation and marketing around this game has been a little weird, so I'm not quite certain what this is all about. What I am certain of is I am super excited to play it. I've heard great things about Silent Hill and, of course, the Silent Hill 2 remake. I mean, Silent Hill 2, period, is one of the most beloved games of all time, so it's going to be weird to jump in with Silent Hill F, but that's what I'm going to do because this game, again, is coming to Xbox, and I think Silent Hill 2 remake is going to come to Xbox soon because if I recall correctly, it had a 1-year exclusive marketing cycle with Sony, so that should be up by October, I believe, and I would imagine an Xbox port is in the near future, so cannot wait for that, and I can't wait for Silent Hill F, which seems to be even scarier and darker and more foreboding than Silent Hill 2 Remake. I also just love the vibe of this game. It takes place in 1960s Japan. The world seems super dark, super foggy, but also really vivid. I mean, the blood is just so red in this game. Kind of an odd point, but I don't know. It looks great. I can't wait to play it on September 25th. That was a surprise. I didn't think this game was going to come out so soon, so definitely hyped for this one. Well, the game that was certainly the most leaked coming into this state of play was Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Ivalice Chronicles? Not sure. This is a remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is one of the most beloved games of all time, and I was super excited to see how this new version was going to look, because this is a game we heard about in 2021. It got leaked in some sort of NVIDIA thing, I'm not really sure, but we heard about it a long time ago, so I thought, man, if they're taking this long on the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, this game has got to look great. It doesn't. It honestly kind of looks bad, to be honest. I don't think it looks better than the original. It's got this weird, like, painted filter over it. I don't really know why that was the direction. I mean, this would have been a perfect HD 2D game, I feel like. The pixel art style just would have fit so well with that HD 2D style, but instead we got this filter half-step version, which I don't know, I don't really like it, but the original version is included on the cartridge, although I don't know if I want to go back to the original version when I play it, because I want to see the new UI and the new, narrative changes and all that stuff. Also, one of the characters is voiced by the guy who voiced Verso in Expedition 33, and I love him. I love his voice. He's got a great voice, so, I don't know if I want to go back to the original or not, so I'm a little bit conflicted, but it is cool that they're re-releasing this game, and I've heard great things about it, so no matter how it looks, I'm sure it's going to be terrific. And I love a good tactical RPG, so I will be checking this one out, and I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm glad it exists, but I wish they went a little further in what they did with this remaster. The final game that was a part of the state of play was Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. This is another game that, of course, is only coming to PlayStation 5, because this is technically a PlayStation Studios game, right? Their logo flashed at the beginning. But I mean, this was a massive shock. PlayStation Studios working with Arc System Works to make a Marvel fighting game. That is just unbelievable. And of course, this game looks sick. I've talked about it before, but Arc System Works, God, their art direction is just so good. The hand-drawn 2D art style just absolutely pops. Some of the backgrounds in these fighting areas are just so vivid, so detailed. The character designs are awesome. The animations are so fluid. It just looks incredible. I pray that one day this gets ported to the Switch or the Series X. I doubt it will, but man, it looks so awesome. I'm also just happy for all the big fighting game fans out there, because I know for them, this was a gargantuan announcement. I can't imagine being a huge fighting fan. Like, Maximilian Dude's reaction was amazing. He was just stunned. Like, he couldn't even speak after seeing that reveal. I couldn't imagine being a huge fighting fan and seeing a game like this revealed. I mean, I was flipping out just because it was a cool announcement. I can't imagine how, a hardcore fan would feel in that moment. And also, just gonna throw it out there, Marvel vs. Capcom seems like it's dead. How about Nintendo versus Capcom? I'm just saying, that could be kind of cool. The door's open. The door is ajar. Let's work on that. Just throwing it out there. Just putting it out into the universe, because that would be sick as well. So yeah, those were my favorite announcements from the State of Play. I think it was the best one of all time. In my opinion, it's either that State of Play or the one where they revealed Street Fighter 6 and Resident Evil 4 Remake. That was a pretty good one as well. But this one just had so much variety. Obviously, you had some incredible games from different Japanese publishers, whether it be Arc System Works, Pragmata, Konami, Square Enix, the people who make Tetris Effect. I'm not really sure what they're called. So many cool games from so many different genres. A bunch that I didn't mention as well that I'm super excited about. Grasshoppers making a new game coming out next year, and that looks super sick. So yeah, I love this State of Play. I mean, as someone who doesn't have a PlayStation, I could even appreciate this one because it had so many different third-party games, and I think Sony's really starting to figure out State of Plays, because honestly, the last few have been pretty good. That one in June with Astrobot and Silent Hill 2 was a pretty darn good one in my view, as someone who doesn't play a lot of PlayStation games because he doesn't have a PlayStation. I thought that one was pretty good. Even the one in September, which revealed Ghost of Yotei, I thought was a pretty good one. And then even the one in February, which got panned everywhere, had a game like Chronos, had some cool third-party games, shadow dropped a Koei Tecmo game. I think Sony's really getting on a roll here with these state of plays. They've set people's expectations low, and now they're starting to slowly raise them, and I think this was the best state of play yet. So shout out to Sony. It seems like they're starting to figure it out after years of just stumbling over themselves with live service slop. I think they're starting to figure out this generation. 5 years in. So we've gotten there. It took a while, but we've gotten there. Now the PSX is going to come in like a year and a half, so what does it even matter? But good job, Sony. Good on ya. I love the state of play. Well, now it's time to talk a little bit about Summer Games Fest. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit, because I only have 3 games to talk about here. Let's just dive right into it. I talked at the beginning about Summer Games Fest and its importance and how it stands in the industry. 3 games that I came away really excited about from this presentation. The first one is Mouse PI for Hire. Now, this is a game we've known about for a while. I follow them on Twitter, so I knew about this game, obviously, before this presentation, but they announced that Troy Baker is voicing one of the characters in it, which is just crazy for so many reasons. Obviously, I love Troy Baker. He voices like everything. It's crazy. Indiana Jones was his last notable role. I'm not really sure how Mouse PI for Hire got him, but that's awesome. I can't wait to see his character in the game. And of course, if you haven't heard about Mouse PI for Hire, this is a game that looks incredible. It's a first-person shooter set in like a gritty LA noir type atmosphere. It's got that Mickey Mouse type animation that just looks so good. This game looks right up my alley. I cannot wait for it. I was disappointed we didn't get a date. I felt like if they were going to show it off here, we'd get a date. We didn't, but man, whenever this comes out, I am locked in for it day one. And boy, Troy Baker on the voice cast. I can't get over that. That's so cool. Just everything's coming together to make this one of my most anticipated games of 2025. The next game that interested me is Stranger Than Heaven, the new game from RGG. This doesn't have a date yet, but boy, this game looks awesome. It's a spin-off of the Yakuza series set in 1900s Japan. And man, the vibe in this game is just immaculate. When we saw it at the Game Awards in December, we didn't really get much about it, and I don't think it really displayed how cool this game looked. All the bright neon lights and the old school outfits and buildings, it just looks so awesome. RGG is great at crafting a detailed and fun to explore world, and I think they might have topped themselves with this one. I'm also thinking it's connected to Yakuza in some way. I don't think this is just a totally unrelated game. Obviously, I believe it is branded as a spin-off, but I think there's some connection to the Yakuza timeline, so to speak. I really do think this is going to wrap in some weird way. I can't wait to see how RGG handles all of that. This game still has an unannounced release date, so I mean, this might be a 2027 game, but with how RGG pumps out games, it'll probably be in 2026. And hey, maybe we'll get a date at the Game Awards. That feels like a good spot for it. RGG and Geoff, they love each other as well. So can't wait to see more about it. This game looks incredible. And RGG just always does good. Like they just pump out games. They're always fun. So can't wait for the next one. This next game was definitely the announcement of the weekend. We heard a lot of rumors over the last few weeks about how Resident Evil 9 was going to show up at the Game Awards, and boy, it wasn't looking good for a while. If you were a Resident Evil fan like I was, waiting for RE9, Summer Games Fest was torture, because the first thing we saw was an advertisement from Capcom for a Resident Evil series sale, and I was like, okay, it's kind of pointless. I thought that was maybe going to be an announcement, but okay, that's fine. I bought Code Veronica. It's like $4 on Xbox, so I picked that up. Cool, works for me. And then we got another little thing from Capcom where the creator of Resident Evil came out and said, we need more time before we can show you Resident Evil 9. So I thought, okay, all the rumors were wrong. All we're getting is the Resident Evil director telling us that RE9 is being worked on. Yeah, no dip, bro. We know RE9 is coming out. RE8 sold like a gazillion copies, right? So I was like, here we go again. Another Resident Evil rumor that doesn't come true. We had Revelations 3, that's not real. We had RE0 Remake, that's not real. And now RE9 needs more time in the oven. Awesome, great. Thanks everybody for getting my hopes up for no reason. But then, somehow, by some miracle, Resident Evil Requiem closed Summer Games Fest, and needless to say, I was hyped. I noticed immediately that this looked like it was in the Resident Evil engine, the RE engine. That engine just has a certain look to it with the character designs and the hair design in particular, but I was like, this can't be Resident Evil 9 because we just got that stupid thing from Capcom that said we weren't getting Resident Evil 9, so like, what is this? And every little detail contributed to the fact that this was definitely Resident Evil 9, but I kept doubting it until, of course, they showed the blown up Raccoon City Police Department. And that's the moment where even the crowd realized this is Resident Evil 9. They started to get hyped. That was cool. I like how you can hear the crowd noise in the background of the reveals. That's another thing that we've lost now that we don't have E3 anymore, is that when you get a really hype announcement, you just see it. You don't get to hear the crowd react to it. So that was pretty cool. And the crowd was definitely hyped for Resident Evil 9. And man, this game just looks incredible. Oh, I cannot wait for this game. This is already my most anticipated game of 2026. I don't care if we're getting 3D Mario or whatever next year. Resident Evil Requiem is the game I'm most looking forward to. It seems to take place in Raccoon City after it got nuked, which is such a cool idea. I never thought they would return to that area specifically, but man, it just looks awesome. I mean, the crater from the nuke is still there. Everything is just destroyed. I can't wait to explore a decrepit and run down Raccoon City after the nuclear bomb absolutely ravaged it. I also think it's cool that we're getting a new protagonist, that being Grace, who apparently is the daughter of a character from Resident Evil Outbreak, which is a crazy pull. I've never played those games because I think they're stuck on the PS2. It'd be cool if they made a Resident Evil Outbreak collection. That would be a great collection. With all the retro collections we've been getting, I'd love a Resident Evil Outbreak HD collection coming out this fall or something. You know what would be really cool is if they remastered the 2 Resident Evil Outbreak games and re-added the online functionality. That would be sick. They should do that. I mean, obviously, I would play that. I want to know who the heck this girl's mother is. From the rumors we've heard, it does also seem like we're going to play as Leon a lot in this game. So I feel like this game might kind of be a send-off to this era of Resident Evil. So I think we might see a lot of cameos from characters like June and Chris and whoever else. I think this is going to be a send-off to this era of Resident Evil in these 9 mainline games. And obviously it is the end of this trilogy of Resident Evil games. Although it doesn't seem like there's much connecting Resident Evil Requiem to Resident Evil 7 and 8. I thought that maybe RE9 would star Rose, and I think for a second we all thought that Grace was Rose, just grown up, even though Grace does look a little different than Rose did in the DLC for RE8. But obviously it quickly became apparent that that wasn't Rose. So I wonder how they'll tie back in RE7 and 8 to RE9. Maybe we will see Rose in some form, just not obviously as a main character. I don't know. We've got plenty of time to speculate on this game. I'm sure we'll see another trailer later at some sort of Capcom event, and then I would guarantee you that we're going to see a trailer for this at the Game Awards, especially considering this game is coming out on February 27th. What? February 27th? That's so soon. We're definitely going to see a trailer for this at the Game Awards this year, so lock in for that. I'm super excited. I will say one thing that worried me is Geoff read the tagline and they said something like, "Get ready for super action-packed gameplay," and that gave me a bit of RE6 vibes. I don't know how I feel about that, but from all I've heard and seen, this seems to be a reinvention of Resident Evil, but in the best ways possible. I cannot wait for this game. Oh my gosh. I mean, this saved Summer Games Fest for me. This might be the best Summer Games Fest ever for me, just because we got Resident Evil Requiem. Like, that alone might be the best announcement at any Geoff Keighley event, even including Game Awards, which has had some incredible announcements over the years. I can't wait. Obviously, this is a day one purchase for me. I think this game is going to be awesome. Resident Evil Requiem, that is so sick. That name is so sick. The logo is so sick. Oh my God, I can't wait for this game. I'm convulsing. I'm so excited. So those are the 3 games that excited me from Summer Games Fest. Yeah, pretty good presentation just because of Resident Evil Requiem. Shout out to the guy who was advertising Splitgate 2 on stage and made an absolute fool of himself. He wore a Make FPSs Great Again hat. Nice, man. Nice. Awesome. Good for you. Any interest I had in Splitgate 2, which was already low, was absolutely shattered because of that guy. What a joke that was. I will say that gave me some old E3 vibes. We've been talking about how Geoff is trying to reignite E3. He definitely did it in that moment. That was some real 2014 Xbox presentation type vibes right there. Like absolute cringe. Please get off the stage. That guy's a total tool bag, and boy, he was getting roasted on Twitter. I mean, all I saw on my For You page was people like, well, not playing Splitgate 2 now, so that guy did not accomplish the goal he set out to achieve, going to Summer Games Fest, so shout out to him. I feel bad for the Splitgate 2 devs, because they just got totally screwed. Anyway, that's enough of this BS. Let's get to the best presentation of the weekend. Let's get to the one that matters most. And that is, of course, Day of the Devs, the yearly indie presentation that follows Summer Games Fest that is always better than Summer Games Fest proper. I thought this was one of the best, if not the best, Day of the Devs yet. There were so many cool games shown off at this one. I have 10 games here, but honestly, there were more than 10 games that looked really cool to me. So again, I'm going to put a list of every game shown off at Day of the Devs in the description, so go check that out if you're interested. Without further ado, let's talk about the 10 games that excited me most at Day of the Devs. I've written a little ditty. That you can't use that phrase anymore. That's out. I've written a little blurb about each game to keep me on track, so this is going to be a scripted section of the video. Should go a little faster, should be a little more fun. Let's get into it right now. I was stoked when House, creators of Untitled Goose Game, announced their new project at the 2023 Game Awards, and we finally got to learn more about it at Day of the Devs. I was a bit disappointed to learn that Big Walk is a 4-player co-op adventure, but I can't deny that it looks charming as all heck. You progress through the world by talking and solving puzzles with your partners, no two of which look the same. The character designs are also hilarious. They remind me a bit of the crows in Monument Valley. Anyone? No? Just me? Alright, well, Big Walk is set to release in 2026, so I have a lot of time to convince some friends to play it with me. Drinkbox Studios, the creators of Guacamelee, are finally back with another game. Blighted is a 2.5D Metroidvania, but its overhead camera angle gives it a Diablo vibe. As is to be expected with Drinkbox, the art direction is stunning. The game is filled with vibrant colors and detailed, hand-drawn environments. The game is set to come out in 2026, so it's certainly one I'm looking forward to next year. Speaking of art direction, Possessors is a game that truly caught my eye. It takes place in an abandoned city which contains a lot of dark, moody areas, which pairs so well with this game's beautiful lighting. The main character emits a weak light herself, and surrounding her throughout the game are small patches of fluorescent and neon lighting that create such a rich vibe. The gameplay looks something similar to that of Metroid Dread or Hollow Knight, though with no release date given, we'll have to wait a bit longer to learn more about its gameplay loop. Regardless, Possessors was the game from Day of the Devs that captivated me the most, and I can't wait to learn more about it. What if your cozy game wasn't cozy? Is a tagline that has become cliched at this point in the video game industry, and while Neverway appears to fall into that category at first, it seems far more focused than a lot of games that try to put a dark spin on the life sim genre. It combines the farming and dating aspects of Stardew Valley with combat sort of similar to that of Link's Awakening, in addition to an eerie soundtrack and an intriguing narrative. Plus, I love the muted, sepia-like pixel art direction of this game. Though it's a familiar look, it uses a color palette quite unique to this retro art style. Neverway also doesn't have a release date, but I'll be waiting patiently for new updates. Is 2025 the year of Patapon? In July, we're getting a collection of the first 2 games from Bandai Namco, and later in 2025, we're getting the spiritual successor from the original creator. Rataton obviously gives off a lot of Patapon vibes, but its vibrant hand-drawn art style and roguelike gameplay make it feel distinct from its spiritual predecessor. The entire game is just incredibly cute too, from its adorable animal-like creatures and its stunning areas. This is one of the few games from Day of the Devs set to launch this year, and its early access starts next month, so we won't have to wait long for some musical goodness. Though most indie games have a good amount of weirdness to them, Pocket Boss might be the oddest game that I'm highlighting today. It's a point-and-click puzzle game that tasks you with fixing a bunch of charts to appease your boss. Now that sounds quite boring as I'm saying it out loud, but trust me, as you'll see in the gameplay on screen, these graphs get quite wonky as the game progresses. It seems like a simple puzzle game with a lot of charm and humor, and I feel like it deserves more love. Its reveal trailer only has 2 comments, and they're both from sex bots. Alright, time to break out my French here. Sujet très intéressant. J'attends avec impatience d'autres vidéos de votre part. I got a little bit throaty there at the end, which translates to very interesting subject. I'm waiting impatiently for your other videos. And you know what? I can't agree more with M10HHN5T6Y Duawa. I am waiting impatiently for more trailers from Pocket Boss. And I've got to agree with how she closed out her message. Tongue emoji, kissy emoji. I agree, Pocket Boss. Tongue emoji, kissy emoji. Pocket Boss doesn't have a release date, so we'll have to wait a bit longer to fudge some numbers. But I can't wait for more updates. Again, tongue emoji all the way. Consume Me is one of 2 games I'm highlighting from Day of the Devs that has a locked-in release date. This one comes out on September 25th, the same day as Silent Hill F. Is this the video game version of Barbenheimer? Tell me which side you're on in the comments. Regardless, Consume Me has a cute, low poly art style and seems to tackle topics of dieting and self-confidence in a respectful and endearing way. Combine that with its offbeat, varied gameplay and its clear sense of humor, and you've got a game that seems like it has a lot of charm. Again, it comes out this September, so you won't have to wait long to play it. Editor Nick here, I forgot one of the games. You know, long videos, things slip through the crack, and it's funny because this might be the game I'm most excited about, so I'm going to record the voiceover for you right here. Off is perhaps the most fascinating game shown at Day of the Devs. It originally released in 2008, and while it's a cult classic in some circles, even inspiring Toby Fox in his creation of Undertale, it didn't seem to get the widespread appeal that it might have deserved. Thankfully, it's returning on August 15th, just 2 months away. Off is a turn-based RPG wherein you take control of a baseball player looking to purify a world of spirits. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I don't want to spoil myself on the game, so I'm not going to look into it. There are people who rave about this title, so I'm excited to finally play it on August 15th, 17 years after its original release. Plus, there's a demo of the prologue on Steam right now, so check it out if you're interested. Okay, forget about Pocket Boss. Tire Boy is undoubtedly the weirdest game on this list. You control a tire with human limbs coming off of it that was raised by a giant owl? Alright then. The game seems to be a combination of a 3D platformer and an action RPG with fast and engaging movement, and the game's cel-shaded art style and pastel color palette will surely make the world pleasing to explore. Wackiness aside, this seems like a game right up my alley. Tire Boy doesn't currently have a release date, but I cannot wait to learn more. I never played Toem, but I always thought its gimmick of taking a bunch of pictures to progress through the world was pretty creative, and I always thought it had a ton of charm. Toem 2, however, feels like what Toem was always supposed to be. The game looks so much sharper than its predecessor, using more 3D renders and sharper textures than the first game, and its movement system has been overhauled, allowing you to jump and climb around the world. While Possessors caught my eye the most of any game shown off at Day of the Devs, Toem 2 is easily my most anticipated game of the showcase. It's set to release in 2026, but while you're waiting, the original game is $4 on the eShop until June 17th, so it's a perfect time to hop in. I know I will. Well, there you have it. Those are my 10 favorite games from Day at the Devs. Again, Day of the Devs is a very important showcase. With how murky and ugly the video game industry has gotten and how bad it is for developers right now, it is important to highlight these indie games and important to show support for a thing like Day of the Devs, which highlights a lot of them. So please go check it out. Go wishlist these indie games if they interest you, because we need more games like these, and I am so excited for a lot of them. And that is going to do it for this video. The 18 games that I found most interesting from Summer Games Fest. Not exactly a round number like 20, but I think we highlighted a lot of cool games in this video, and I'm excited to play most of them, besides the ones that seem to be exclusive to PS5. Hopefully, we get a port to one of my consoles soon. But regardless, There is a lot of fun stuff coming out in the next few months and years in the gaming industry, and I hope I introduced you to a game that interests you and one that you added to your wish list. If that happened and you found a game in this video that interests you and you're gonna check out, tell me in the comments below which one it is. Which game of this video are you most hyped for? And also tell me how hyped you are for Resident Evil Requiem. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait for that game. And be sure to end your comment with a tongue emoji, like that sex bot on the Pocket Boss comment section. With all that said, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that big fat button. There is more to come on this channel. I'll talk about the Xbox Game Showcase when it rolls around tomorrow. Whenever the Nintendo Direct happens this month, and I do think it's going to happen this month, we'll surely talk about that. And I've got some videos in the works about my impressions on the new Nintendo Switch 2 console. I've got it right in front of me right now. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I wanted to record a day one impressions video, but I was really sick for some reason on the release of Switch 2, and I tried to gut it out and record a video, but it just didn't come out good. Y'all don't want to see that. So in the next week or two, I will be uploading a few impressions videos of different aspects of the Switch 2. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for what is going to be a very exciting summer for gaming, and heading into the fall, a very exciting rest of 2025. You don't want to miss any of it. So again, like, subscribe, share the video with a friend who needs to discover some new games to add to their wish list or doesn't support indies as much as they should. And with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Tongue emoji, kissy emoji.